But would you say that, and would you admit that Facebook played a role?
Congresswoman, I think certainly there was content on our services, and from that perspective, I think that there's further work that we need to do to make our services and moderation more effective.
I hear that. Okay. Do you think that when you take money to run advertisements that promote disinformation, that you are exempt from liability? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Section 230.
Mr. Zuckerberg, yes or no?
Congresswoman, I don't know the legal answer to that, but we don't allow misinformation in our ads. And any ad that's been fact-checked as false, we don't allow to run as an ad.
Mr. Zuckerberg, in the fall of 2020, you made numerous assurances to Congress that you had a handle on militia and conspiracy networks. We know, however, that Facebook private groups and the algorithms that recommend them have assisted in radicalizing users and facilitated terrorism, violence, and extremism against individuals, including the governor of my state of Michigan. Racial and ethnic minorities, including Muslims and recently Asian Americans, are facing growing racist hate online and violence offline. Last year, I sent you multiple letters about these issues, so I know you're aware of them. In October of 2020, Facebook temporarily decided to stop recommending political or civic groups on its platforms, a change you've now made permanent. But to be honest, despite what you did in October, we had an insurrection that stormed the Capitol on January 6th. I seriously question Facebook's commitment to actually stopping extremism. In a recent investigative report, a former Facebook AI researcher said he and his team conducted study after study confirming the same basic idea: models that maximize engagement increase polarization. And you yourself have said that the more likely content is to violate Facebook community standards, the more engagement it generally receives. Engagement is the key to Facebook's growth and success, and the stock market's rewarded you for it, even as you've been criticized for promoting extremism and racist content, including in a 2020 Facebook civil rights audit. The two seem to go hand in hand, as Facebook was also the most cited social media site in charging documents that the Justice Department filed against the Capitol Hill insurrections. Mr. Zuckerberg, do you still maintain that the more likely user content is to violate Facebook community standards, the more engagement it will receive? Yes or no?
Congresswoman, thanks for raising this, because I think that there's been a bunch of inaccurate things about this shared today.
Okay,
there seems to be a belief.
Yes or no?
Sorry. This is a nuanced topic. So if you're okay with it, I'd like to explain
I can keep it short, but I'll give it a second, since I'm one of the people that's a top victim of this hate.
People don't want to see misinformation or divisive content on our services. People don't want to see clickbait and things like that. While it may be true that people might be more likely to click on it in the short term, it's not good for our business or our product or our community for this content to be there. It's not what people want, and we run the company for the long term with a view towards 10 or 20 years from now. And I think that we're highly aligned with our community in trying to not show people the content that's not going to be meaningful to them.
Okay, Mr. Zuckerberg, I only have 2 minutes left. Do you still agree with the statement in Facebook's most recent 10K filing that the first risk related to your product offerings is our ability to add and retain users and maintain levels of user engagement with our products? Just a yes or no, please.
Congresswoman, I think that that's generally right. I mean, for any product, the ability to build something that people like and use is something that is a risk if we can't do that.
So do you still agree with the statement of your CFO on a recent earnings call that the changes to group recommendations so far wouldn't affect your engagement? Yes or no?
Congresswoman, there are so many different parts of the service that I think it's probably right that not recommending political or civic groups probably isn't going to meaningfully decrease engagement, but we've taken a lot of other steps, including, reducing viral videos by about 50 million hours of watching a day, which have had a meaningful impact on engagement. But we do that because it helps make the service better and helps people like it more, which I think will be better for both the community and our business over the long term.
Okay, Mr. Zuckerberg, I'm sorry to have to do this in 5 minutes, but given your promises in the fall, the events that transpired on January 6th, and your true incentives, as you yourself admit, I find it really difficult to take some of these assurances you're trying to give us today seriously.
And finally, the FBI has released numerous documents showing that many of the insurrectionists used Facebook to coordinate and plan the attack on January 6th. So my question is, how is it possible for you not to at least admit that Facebook played a central role or a leading role in facilitating the recruitment, planning, and execution of the attack on the Capitol?
Chairman, my point is that I think that the responsibility here lies with the people who took the actions to break the law and do the insurrection, and secondarily, also the people who spread that content, including the president, but others as well, with repeated rhetoric over time, saying that the election was rigged and encouraging people to organize. I think that those people bear the primary responsibility as well, and that was the point that I was making.
I understand that, but your platforms supercharged that. You took a thing and magnified in 12 hours. You got 350,000 people in your site. You gin this up. Your algorithms make it possible to supercharge these kinds of opinions. I think we're here because of what these platforms enable, how your choices, put our lives and our democracy at risk. And many of us just find it just unacceptable.
Allowing disinformation and extremism to spread, it actively amplified it and spread it. This is my point. Nonetheless, Facebook didn't permanently stop recommending political and civil groups to the United States until after the January 6th insurrection, years after it was made aware of this research. The fact that Facebook's own recommendation system helped populate extremist groups compels us to reevaluate platforms' liabilities. Now, back to that Wall Street Journal article. Facebook's chief product officer, Chris Cox, championed an internal effort to address division on Facebook and proposed a plan that would have reduced the spread of content by hyperactive users on the far left and far right. The article alleges, Mr. Zuckerberg, that you personally reviewed this proposal and approved it, but only after its effectiveness was decreased to 80%. Is that true? Yes or no, please?
Congressman, we've made a lot of measures that aim to fight this content, including.
Did you approve it after its effectiveness was decreased to 80%? Yes or no?
Congressman, I can't speak to that specific example, but we've put in place a lot of different measures, and in the aggregate, I think that they're effective, including.
Did you review the proposal and approve it?
Congressman, we do a lot of work in this area, and I review a lot of proposals, and we've moved forward on a lot of steps.
It's not a difficult question. I'm just asking if you reviewed this internal proposal and you approved it. And you won't even answer that. It's so easy to answer that question. It's very specific. All right, you won't answer, right? Yes or no?
Congressman, that's not what I said. I said I did review that, in addition to many other proposals and things that we've taken action on, including shutting off recommendations for civic and political groups.
Did you approve it with the 80% decrease in effectiveness?
Congressman, I don't remember that specifically, but we've taken a number of different steps on this.
Let me go to Mr. Pachai.